Welcome to Selling Circular, the podcast dedicated to exploring the innovative minds and ideas shaping our transition to a circular economy. I'm Gar Punnett, CEO of LoopLayer.
I'm Sabira Garr, VP of Product at Reaply, and currently I'm in India, had a last-minute trip, and I was actually thinking about this episode as I've been walking around because it's almost Eid here, which means that a lot of people are getting this like celebratory mood, and there's a lot of shopping happening in general, like clothes, shoes, but also toys. And being here, whenever you walk on the street, like people are like trying to sell you something all the time. And the range is very wide. Like somebody tries to sell me like a comforter, just like walking behind me being like, "Man, I got some good quality stuff for you here." But I thought about this episode because I also like see a lot of toys. And there's established toy stores, but then people on the street are trying to, like, when you're waiting at stoplights, all kinds of knickknacks. Like my dad is like a young boy, had this toy where like you just have a small drum and it has like strings and like I guess some balls at the end. You just like kind of roll it in your hand and it's a kind of like a musical instrument. And there's like high quality like wooden versions that kind of sound good, but then like the hawkers on the street who are trying to make a living are selling like really low quality plastic items that just, they're trying to entertain a kid for a hot sec, right? Just pay like 10 rupees, 20 rupees, 50 rupees, like less than $1. And you're kind of like, yeah, okay, I'll get that to distract my kid for 20 minutes. I don't have kids, but I imagine people who do. It's just like kind of like a no-brainer
quick
decision.
Little distracted. Yes. That's definitely not where we're going. This is challenging that. This is what's fun about this episode.
Yeah, exactly. So this is definitely a different episode. Normally, we've been focusing on more established companies, but we had the chance to talk to an entrepreneur who's in the very like early stages of developing her company and her idea, and it's definitely messy, innovative, and just the beginning. So that's been really cool.
That's where we recently met Teresa Giovannoli, founder of Little Squiggle, a company that has yet to really launch its first product, but is already making waves with its vision and its successful seed funding round. So Teresa is designing a toy company with circular business principles baked in from day one, a bold move in the industry, often constrained by very traditional models. Her first product, Hara the Hippo, very cute, is not just a toy. It's actually, we really kind of get into, it's kind of like a gateway to teaching kids about stewardship and sustainability and circular economy.
So in this episode, we talk with Teresa those principles, and she shared her insights on what the process of early prototyping and design decisions looked like for her, especially incorporating take-back systems. She talked about the trade-offs between sustainable design and customer engagement. And then, of course, how storytelling can be this moment to educate young children about sustainability in playful ways. And then there's also the reality of financial situation of creating a new
trade-offs.
Company,
trade-offs,
and a new concept altogether. So she really discussed with us the challenges and balancing premium pricing with the promise of product returns and take-backs, and how that could really fund and fuel that bigger mission to reduce waste.
It's in that vein of communication and thinking through trade-offs where it is no surprise to us, and we get to talk about it, is that communicating is harder than it seems, and how she's testing essentially all the messaging at farmers markets. And she believes that circularity can be profitable and transformative for the toy industry. And what we got to enjoy was we got to dream big with Teresa, discussing the dreams again of vertical integration, the future of manufacturing for Little Squiggle's cast of characters in the future, and the stories that they go on. If you've ever wondered what it takes to start building a circular economy business from the ground up, or how toys can spark conversations about sustainability, it's a great episode for that. And so ultimately, we got to enjoy it, especially as we get into the circularity season of really thinking about how are we educating more consumers and educating kids now, too, as the beginning of consumers. Before we interview Teresa, we would like to take that moment, and we're going to talk about our first Selling Circular partnership with Circularity and the Trellis Group.
Hey, Circular Squad, we're teaming up with our friends at Trellis Group to bring you the inside scoop on the hottest event in circular economy, Circularity 2025 in Denver.
If you're getting CES vibes, think about that, except instead of the Consumer Electronics Show, we've actually got 3 days of circular economy solutions. It's why we love Circularity, not just because it's the preeminent proving ground for circular economy breakthroughs, but also it's because where we actually meet many of our podcast guests for the first time, and they actually end up becoming friends.
Which we love. So from April 29th to May 1st, Colorado Convention Center is going to be buzzing with innovators, policy movers and shakers, and circularity changemakers. And if you're there in person or online, our partnership with the Trellis Group has got you covered. So when you join in person, you're going to have inspiring keynotes, actionable workshops, and the ability to share great meals with industry colleagues. And then, of course, you can take those learnings back to your team. And if you're joining online, we've also partnered with Circularity to bring you live inside content from the conference.
You get to see Sabira behind the scenes, working the interviews. So
Love
use
it.
code C25podcast at registration for 15% off passes. But hurry, because again, as the conference gets closer, the prices go up. So grab your reusable coffee cup, rally that team, because we're all about building this future together, one reclaimed polymer / one circular partnership at a time.
See you in Denver.
You just recently jumped in just full steam on
Yeah.
on crowdfunding
Yes.
a fund, or essentially getting funding for your idea.
Yeah.
What was that like to communicate circularity to consumers?
Yes.
And to communicate this sort of product take back idea with a kid's toy to consumers?
I thought it was going to be easy going in, and not gonna lie, it was a little bit more complicated than I expected.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, I think
Big surprise.
yeah. Especially like I'm an engineer in background, and so for me, like I love the technicalities of circularity and what, all the different parts of it. Like it's one of the reasons why I like design, of just like this whole complex, beautiful system boiling down into something minimal and circular. But how do you explain that to people who don't know what the circular economy is? And so I would say we still haven't mastered it, but the campaign, like a lot of it, our first phase was a soft launch, and it was mostly bringing people to our products page, to our WeFunder campaign page. And so that was really trying to boil down, like, what does circular mean? And the way that we did that playfully was having, our first product is going to be Hara the Hippo. And so we did like Hara's journey. And so we kind of tried to turn it into a story to say what happens to Hara the Hippo throughout the way. And I think that was really impactful to our customers to be like, oh, now I see what you're saying. Because trying to communicate that we're not recycled and that we're circular, like we are taking these products and turning it into a brand new product. It's not secondhand. It's like a totally different concept. So I think that was like visually was really important for us to be able to communicate this. And then I think backing it up with some social like extra posts about like, what is circular? What does it mean? That was really helpful. And I think, that was good for our, like the close market, people who know me, people who are like, oh yeah, I know what sustainability is, might have heard about circular economy, or this reminds me of a product. But then we hit this kind of plateau where it was like, what about the people after that? How do you explain it to someone who's never heard of what the circular economy is? And so that's where I got out into the farmers markets. Like I was trying to get a little bit more engaged with people and just start testing some messaging. And I found that the circularity message can sometimes be a little bit long, and it's really difficult to boil that down.
I'm curious why you thought going in it was going to be easy. Like what had given you that idea or that signal?
It's a great question. I don't know. I guess it just like it made sense in my mind that I was like, yeah, it's a circular product. But I actually had one friend that was like, so what does the circle do? And I'm like, the product itself is not circular. Yeah, so I guess I thought that it was different, like circular economy spoke for itself. And taking products back, I didn't put together that it relates a little bit too much to the way that we do things like recycling products and whatnot. And yeah, so I guess I didn't put those things together, that consumers' minds are going to jump to their easiest conclusions because they don't know what it means to be circular. We don't have enough examples out there yet.
I think that's Sabira, we don't often maybe engage with the truest form of this, of how intuitive this is to us,
Yeah.
and then how intuitive it is to other people too. Like, of course, no, don't waste this.
Right.
But then baking that into selling again a product for a kid, and then
Yes.
people somehow they're like, well, how does this work? And somehow there it gets confusing, and you're like, oh my
Yes.
gosh, packaging this messaging is just increasingly getting more complicated.
It is. There's layers, because when we would first describe it and be like, yeah, we will pay you to take your toys back. You know, we want to do something with those resources. And they're like, heck yeah, I'm all on board. Like, there's only so many methods we have for end of life. I love this. And then, you know, you start talking to them and they'd be like, great. So like you recycle it and then you give it to someone else. And I'm like, wait, we've lost it. There's like an
Wait.
extra layer of like, no, but then there's this whole beautiful world of what we do with it when we get it back. So I think when we get further along, like I do really want to help educate the consumers in what circular means, but it's really going to be like showing them and proof of the pudding. Like here's, you know, rather than an animated little graphic on our product page, it's going to be like, here's the video of what happens when Hara comes back into our manufacturing plant. I think that will be helpful, but even still, boiling that down into simple messages and getting some of those layers there is definitely one of the harder problems with us engaging with consumers who aren't naturally in the circular market.
When
Have you
you're when you're selling the product, and there's like the marketing, but then there's like the point of sale.
Yes.
How are you telling the story there of we're gonna want this back, or we're gonna pay you in the future? Is that at that moment, or are you trying to catch them after they have the product? Like, where in the journey are you sharing that, you know, please, you know, we're willing to pay for this for you to bring it back?
It's going to be in the beginning, like at the point of sale, not afterwards, because I think it's part of the strength of the message. And one thing that we want to do as well, and one of the reasons why I love that this concept is coming into the children's toy industry, is to start the conversation with those kids in the playroom and, you know, have a different experience with the kids of like, okay, rather than gathering up all your toys and we're just gonna put them in this little corner and then maybe take them to another family if we can, or Goodwill if we can, or the trash if we don't have any other options. It's like, oh, let's package Hara the Hippo up. Like, Johnny, are you ready? Like, let's put it in the box and look, this is what Hara is going to go to next. So I think like having it at the point of sale so that the customers like know, they don't have to feel guilty in consumerism and paying and shopping for their kids. So that's kind of the mindset that I want to tackle. Like we shouldn't feel guilty giving our kids everything that they want to learn, to develop, to grow. And so I think sharing it at that point, it's like, oh, I don't have to feel bad about getting this product because I know at the end of a life it's going to have another purpose.
What I love about where we're entering this conversation is we're so early on in this product development. You've crowdfunded Hara. You're getting that product out there. The Little Squiggle vision is coming to life.
Yep.
You now you're embarking on two sides of that journey.
Mm-hmm.
One is product design.
Mm-hmm.
The other is business model design.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about the process of which you're making trade-offs right now, even theoretically?
Yep.
When it comes to some of the design decisions that you're making versus what can be sort of then taken back from a customer, and sort of talk about some of those trade-offs that you're currently engaging in?
Yeah, absolutely. This is actually what makes the product design for this company so fun, because in other companies I've worked at, like Happiest Baby, they've got a product that they want to design and they already have a couple products available and they're like, oh, this is what our next product is going to be. And so you're just designing that. But now, you know, I have this idea for this one kind of Hippo product that's going to come out. And in my mind, I visually have the next couple sort of, but it's not concrete yet. But designing like for the business model and for the circularity side, it's not just designing a really cool toy. It's like, okay, what concepts am I going to use on Hara the Hippo that are going to work for the next 10 toys? What makes this easy to bring into the system? And like, where kind of my mind is going as I'm designing this is it's not just the design of the toy, but what about when we bring it back in-house and we disassemble things? How easy is it to take these things apart? How permanent are these things coming together? And then it's like, is this repeatable? Because I think from a business side, that's how you can start to make circularity really profitable, is like the more you can repeat things, the more you can simplify, make it look minimal, even if it takes a lot of thought process and design in the initial product. And I think it's important, like you said, we're early in the product development process. I think it's so important to get that right from the beginning. I think so much of this it comes into the design side. So if you spend extra calories and thought in the design side, it will help you on the business side all the way throughout. And so it's where, like, now we've raised the funds. I've kind of gotten organized, started hiring a couple people so that I can go heads deep into the product development and think about the business side alongside of that, so that I can it's almost like I have to wear both hats as I'm designing the first product.
What is the math starting to look like for you? So you have like one product now, but you have the vision for 10.
Yes.
And maybe like reconfigurability there.
Yeah.
So I imagine like you'll have revenue from the product.
Yes.
But you're going to have an outflow of cash when you pay for take back.
Right.
And then you're going to have to spend to reconfigure, but that's great because you're going to get revenue from the second product. So walk us through like maybe the percentages or how you're thinking about that future along with today's kind of first product.
Yeah, the financial projections was definitely a tough thing. And as you're talking to investors, you want to be confident about your financial projections, but then it takes time to build that circularity piece. Your first product isn't going to have it in the first year, especially when some of these components you're trying to bring right, like the plastics that we're going to use, the plant-based plastics, we're going to mechanically grind up and bring back into the beginning of the cycle. And that's dependent on us making our reverse supply chain easy enough for customers so that we get a good percentage of products coming back in, and then the state of those products that we can bring those plastics to the beginning. All of that takes a lot of time to build up. So, and there's not a lot of data out there. Like, I've tried to reach out to some circular companies and be like, hey, what do you assume as the percentage that you get back? And it's proprietary information. There's not a lot of people that are kind of willing to share it, which I understand. I do my best guess on financial projections, and my mindset is that of course, I want to be a sustainable business. I think to be a sustainable, successful, really successful business, I need a successful business at the heart of that. And then I need all these circularity things to support the business bottom line. And so I think like where my mindset is financially, the circular units have to have a better margin than the new units for the business to prove out the circularity concept. And then same for, the percentage returns. If we have low percentage returns, like let's say I assume 20% percentage returns from our customers, and maybe we actually get out in the market and we're hitting 10%, that's on me as a business owner because I need to help my reverse supply chain logistics to make it a lot easier. I need to engage with those customers, or maybe I'm not sharing it well enough on the point of sale. So I think like the financial projections, usually you're basing it off of kind of evidence and data that have been there from all these other companies. And the way that I'm tackling it right now is like, let me get my first best guess. Let me be super transparent to investors that you might not see the circularity really take full effect financially until 5 years, at least until like it will start to see benefits, but you're not going to really start to see it kind of hit the bottom line until then. And then also it's like, these are now part of my KPIs. So it's not, it was the best guess, but it's also like the health of the business. And part of kind of my philosophy for Little Squiggle is let's bring these into kind of business terms, like our percentage rate of returns. It's no longer like a just for fun, sustainable thing. It's like the health of the business and the health of the world and the health of our impact is all based on these metrics. So we're going to figure out how to make them happen,
That, I think all of that probably necessitates a premium product.
Yes.
In terms of a kid's toy again, and there's no dig on that. This is a valid experience for a child, but it's still a business experiment when it comes to how do we engage with that child and that family and that parent making that decision of to return that toy back. And so with that, how has that sort of been, again, messaged where this will, some parents will understand that and are okay taking a part of that?
Yeah. I've already seen this with the campaign and, going to the farmers markets and talking to some parents, having a booth, showing them the toy. I've had some parents that are like, oh my gosh, like our our initial kind of sale that we're going to go for is $90, but we're going to pay our customers $20 to get it back. And so this is where you were talking about, Sabira, when are you going to tell them that? Like, it's really important to be at the point of sale, to be like, we're super transparent. Like, this is all part of the process. And so that $20 is incorporated into the toy because it's so important for us to get that back. That might not be the right price. Like, that's what the whole proof of concept is for. We can tweak the design to help change and fine tune that device to speak to our customers. But there are some customers that are like, $90, yeah, that makes sense. And there's some customers who are like, that's way too expensive. But, part of it feeds back into the design, because if you're paying that much for a product, it shouldn't feel like a $30 electronic toy on the shelves of Target. Mm-hmm. So it's got to feel a lot nicer. It's got to engage a lot better with the children and the parents. The brand design has to be a lot more sophisticated. So we've taken that into it, recognizing that we're going to be a premium brand. And then that's part of where the proof of concept phase comes in, is like, okay, but what is premium? Is it 3 times the cost? Is it 2 times the cost? And so, because we don't know yet. But that's where the next year is going to be really fun.
I think it's really interesting because you have to solve, that's the inherent challenge of circularity. Is like, you still have to do the job that the parent is hiring you for, which is a good toy that is either educating their children or occupying or entertaining their children.
Yes.
Occupying. I like that key word there. Yes.
But maybe tell us like a little bit more about the Hippo and how that, like designing it is you're thinking or challenging yourself to deliver that experience to the kid and to the parent. And then there's of course the circular layers on top.
Right. It's funny because I think I had fun designing the toy, and then I also had so much fun building the circularity message. And then going to the farmer's market or doing some of these kind of video shoots and playing with the kids, like I almost forgot that part of it. And so seeing them play with the toy and love the toy, I'm like, wait, this is so exciting. Like, I'm creating a toy. I totally forgot. Like, I'm not just creating a sustainable thing. Like, what a fun thing to be designing, So Hara the Hippo is, she's aimed at ages like 1 to 3, 1 to 4 age range. We still have to, once we get I only have 3 prototypes right now that we've been bringing to farmers markets, and we've tested it with families, but we'll fine tune that this year once we get a lot more families testing with it. But essentially the top of her features are more non-electronic, like the ears click and turn, the eyes click and press. So it's more those sensory tactile type features. And then the bottom are the electronic components. So there's 3 different modes. One's just simple press and play, almost like a piano. The second, each tooth plays a different song. And then the third is a pattern repeat game. So I think it's like you said, like the one of the biggest questions that we get, I'm telling the sustainability message, and then one of the biggest questions we get is like, okay, but what does the toy do? And I'm like, oh yes, I forgot. Like,
totally.
It is really difficult when you're doing a sustainable company and you're super excited about the circular side, because you're like, oh wait, my customers, like, this is what they're focused on first, and then this, I
love that, because again, what this is really, there's an experimentation to this that I think is very much needed in the market. And when I look at sort of the macro sense of a company like yours, the purpose is to defy the status quo that other toy companies are just stuck in a rut doing.
Yes.
And so many of them now are starting to think through their own circularity messages. They're looking at their products, they're looking at their materials, they're starting to think through these concepts, but that is again, defying what has made them successful. And so I think, again, that's where this is so interesting to us, is proving out the model that ultimately, hopefully more will follow. More can look at this and go, oh, I see what they did at those early stages.
Agreed. Yeah. I think, when I was starting this company and trying to really define of like, what is the problem I'm trying to solve and how am I going to solve it? At first, I was trying to look at those big companies and be like, how can I find the recycled plastic that all these companies could use? Or how can I solve their problem? And what I realized is like, they all have a very strict system that they have to follow, And so I was like, you know what? They have a very different problem that they have to solve. They have all these SKUs that have been around for years. They're making all of their products in Asia. They have suppliers that they use. They can only turn certain knobs. And maybe, you know, you have a really kind of like forward thinking company that will turn the knob a little bit more, but there's only so far that they can go within their system that exists. And so, you know, I looked at that and I was like, it's the beauty of starting a brand new company is like, I can start from scratch, you know, like I have no suppliers that I've worked with yet. I have no supply chain that I'm stuck with. I have no customers yet. So I don't have obligations for my customers to meet yet. And so that was like the excitement of all of it is I was like, wait, I can solve a totally brand new problem. And the goal is that I build it so that everyone can look at it and be like, oh, heck yeah, that is the way that we should be doing business. Like circularity makes the business way more money. Because I think in a capitalist market, like that's how you actually make an impact. It's not like, oh, wow, circularity and sustainability is cool and good for the earth. A lot of people will think that, but I think like the numbers have to speak for themselves. And so, yeah, like then maybe the bigger companies can adopt it in the like new products or start to kind of transition. But I definitely recognize that the larger toy companies, it will be, this concept is difficult for them to experiment with at least.
Exactly. I think that that speaks to the on the innovation track of this. So there's something I'm about to pull some threads that are kind of raw, but maybe we can organize it, which is when we're talking about at scale, the biggest impact will probably happen from the largest companies moving this direction.
Yeah.
They will only then be guided though by the successes of the companies that are sort of coined as born circular, where they're incorporating circular economy into their business models, and then that will affect downstream other decisions that companies, as you said, as I was saying, are set in stone. Like people don't understand the role of innovation, I think, and sometimes and how powerful that is. Where these larger companies again have to go by what they've almost what they've set before them. It is what their models are based on. And so in that born circular concept, and I love thinking of born circular and then babies, because again, we're thinking about born circular humans, of thinking about how do we that plays so almost integrally now into that education.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think what's so cool is like part of this concept, like I was inspired from going to grad school and learning a couple of things in grad school. And it makes me really excited of like you're talking about born circular, like imagine our kids nowadays playing with these toys. And it's like, oh yeah. And then I remember like, you know, they're in some of the most excited kids about this toy were some 9-year-old boys that came up to the farmer's market because they're like, oh yeah, I know about circular, or I know about like recycling. They didn't know about circularity. That would have been very impressive. But they're like, wait, I know about recycling. And like, oh, so you're saying that you like, she goes back to the factory and like, they're engaging. And even one of the kids, I was shocked, like at the farmer's market, he knew the types of plastics that can be recycled and that can't be. I was like, I don't know if I could recite the number without just double checking with Google first. And so I just think like if we're teaching our kids this really early on, it's gonna just like there will be little seeds that are planted, and then by the time that they're entering the industry, it's gonna be totally different, and they're gonna be the ones coming up with these kind of novel, brand new concepts. So I probably took that in a different direction than where you're headed, but. Yeah,
all the same circular direction.
Exactly.
Yes.
So then for the toy itself, what you mentioned that like the top part is kind of like clickable and then the bottom part is more electronic. Like what are you envisioning will happen when it comes back?
Yes. So like one of the biggest things is that it cannot be permanently fastened together. A lot of our electronic toys right now are welded shut. Or, you know, glued together because it's a lot faster to glue something shut than to do all of the fasteners. And so, you know, for these companies that have to sell their toys at $30 and ship it overseas, every penny matters for them. For us, it's really important to get to the inside and to take those things apart. So, being able to, you know, unscrew that and open it up, and then also to be able to separate each of the components. There's some really great companies like Thousand Fell, the shoe company. They don't adhere some of their things together so that they can remove different types of materials and then separate those into the streams they have to go into. So we're kind of learning from some companies that are already successful in the market in other industries and trying to apply that here. So yeah, I think being able to very easily get to those components and then separate them is really kind of the baseline idea.
And I think something I'm so curious about is that manufacturers or contract manufacturers probably haven't done that before. So
Yeah.
how have you worked with them to say, like, when it comes back, like, this is kind of the plan and we have to be ready for it?
Yeah. So actually I learned a lot from Happiest Baby. I do think that they're pretty innovative in their snoo technology. They have a refurbishment line where you can rent the snoos, and they have this really beautiful system set up where you bring the snoo in and there's kind of checks of the refurbishment line. So it's like, does this one look brand new? Let's do some, like, a bunch of testing on it. Let's disinfect it, clean it up, and then send it back out. Or, this one sounds like it's not right, so let's open it up, see what's going on. Or there's further repairs. And so they're doing that more on like a refurbishment line. And I think I was just really inspired seeing that and seeing the technicians. And at the same time, like, they have technicians who are familiar with the product. And so, I was kind of taking that and it's like, well, what if our technicians were part of our family, like, not contract manufacturers, like, we're all kind of part of one big family, and they are the ones putting the units together and they're the ones disassembling the units. And so they know this unit probably better than I do, who designed it, So I think that's part of, like, the circularity being like part of your ecosystem. Like, we're all kind of like touching this toy in and out, and then that's where the improvements come over time. So that's what we're trying to build.
Well, I love that trying to build, because it speaks to then, with the inspiration coming from Happiest Baby potentially, where do you see this evolving?
Yeah.
Do we move past recycling and into reuse and into resale? Because my pressure into this is I'm most fascinated with the idea, because I love this family aspect of having the technicians in-house, that Hara goes back to the dentist and gets new teeth.
Yeah.
Just seems to really play into the messaging of this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm excited to be at that point, to be able to, like, kind of like have that message and have units out there. I have big dreams for the company. I'm sure every founder does. But yeah, I envision us having our own manufacturing plant that we do all of like the putting the new units together and some of the mechanical recycling and whatnot. Like, I want it to be as internal as possible, because I think the circularity piece, especially being innovative and kind of new for this concept in the industry, it's a lot easier to innovate when you have the mechanical recycling on the inside of your plant. You can experiment with, like, okay, let's try, can we mix these two colors together and does it still come out okay? Or things like that, you just can play around a little bit more. And so, yeah, I envision us having like a bunch of toys out in the market, and them all having similar kind of design concepts. Like, maybe we've been out for 5 years and you decide to return your Hara the Hippo from year 1. And we can accept that because we have this whole ecosystem built that will seamlessly kind of pop back into our workflow. So that's kind of what I'm envisioning for the company. Yeah.
I love this, but I'm going to double down. And I rarely double down in this way, which is, so what I hear in this too is the mechanical recycling sort of vertical integration in a dream state, but very real to the business model.
Yeah.
I think, where does that play into how you view that unit economics, where it's important to take them apart and sort of, now you're source separating these components of these toys, putting them back into their own individual supply streams in your company.
Yes.
Do you think that makes more sense for the model in the short run to get to the production level you need?
Yeah.
Where do you, and then how do you, if it's appropriate and if you desire, for your great company, when does that come into maybe just taking a product and not dismantling and just not destroying, but mechanically recycling the whole product? But where does that come into the actual potentially keeping the chassis of Hara and then sort of cycling in and out certain components?
Yeah. So that's going to come from the customers. And I think there's two things. Like, I think there's ways, like, I'm trying to kind of zone in and be like, let's do this one thing really well, and let's really understand kind of our unit economics, and let's, like, improve those as much as we can before we start looking at anything else. And also, like, let's get like 20 toys going that we're doing it with this kind of circular concept, and let's get really good at that. And then we'll look at kind of resale stuff or like other sustainable options. No, but I love that you're bringing it up. And then the second piece is, I'm kind of taking the assumption that if we're selling a premium product, our customers aren't going to want something that's resold. They're going to want something that's brand new, that's fresh, that's like I'm buying, like opening up a new phone is like one of the most exciting experiences. And so if you're paying for a premium product like that, you shouldn't have to sacrifice that feeling. But if our customers start kind of engaging and they're like, yeah, but we don't love that you're just kind of recycling the plastics immediately, then we'll be like, heck yeah, let's do it. Like I think I'm going into this like very open-minded, where it's like the customers, it's whatever level the customers are ready to engage, because I'm there with you, like circularity wise, whatever is better for the planet, let's do. But if people aren't going to buy it, then as
you're exactly right.
Yeah, exactly.
I think I love that, because again, we're coming at this so early on that this is the joy then of right now we're preaching to the market saying, hey, get ready for this product.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's up to you as the consumer and the customer to be like, hey, this is what we want. Don't be an average consumer. Expect, the next best thing that you can get. So I think, again, I get excited about that too, because this is the market's opportunity to go, hey, we can do something different. And I think that comes down to the messaging you're already putting into the market.
Yes. Yeah. And I think there's a side of the market who's not even familiar with the sustainability side. So I think, even when I look at who our customers are going to be, we're going to have these sustainable warriors who are already kind of in the market space and who are like, I know what the circular economy is, or I want plant-based plastics, or, I know all these additives that these other companies put in and I don't want those. And then you're also going to have the other side of consumers who are like, but you're still a plastic toy. I don't understand what's sustainable about it. Or they might not even care, which is totally fine, to each their own. But I think like that will be the really interesting thing when we're engaging is, like we want to broaden this to as many consumers as possible. So it'll be interesting to see how those people who aren't as familiar with sustainability, how they're kind of engaging with like our education and like our toys, and how much they're returning toys and whatnot.
There's like the market dynamics and also like the decision of like what is status quo versus reacting to the market dynamics. So I find that really interesting, and I know those are like choices that you have to make.
Yeah.
But I actually also wanted to ask that similar question, but about investors. Like you chose, either you chose or were influenced to crowdfund versus raise funding in other forms and formats. So tell us about that decision, and similarly, like was that like you were just gonna take the crowdfunding approach, or did you get market signal and react to it?
Yeah, great question. This was kind of my battle of 2024. I'm a new founder. I've never raised money before, and so I went to go start raising money in 2024, having no idea what I was doing, and like going for a kind of angel pre-seed type funding. And so, sent the pitch deck out to a couple people. Obviously, you're not going to hit it in your first shot. And then starting to engage and like going to more events, going to more investor events, and just trying to get my name out there and meet with more people. And I was getting really positive feedback, but 2024 was not a great year to be raising money for a sustainable product, for a hardware product, for something that doesn't have AI in it. It was not fun. But I think I was encouraged because I was still getting positive messaging from the investors to say like, we really love your idea. We just like approach us when you're a little bit further, like when you're getting towards the seed stage. And so I was like, I have something here, and I'm listening to the questions that they're asking. And I'm, looking from that and starting to figure out how to answer some of those questions. But I'm just not getting any traction in this early stage fundraising. And then I actually went to an event that Hello Alice hosted, their business for small businesses. And it was called Money Mindset. And it was about, fundraising is tough right now. So how can small business owners and startups really thrive or survive in this environment? And I heard another founder, Kate Flynn, talk about how she did equity crowdfunding. So that's when I kind of started thinking about it. And I think it was like 2 months later where I just was like, I want to grow this business. Like I am ready. I've been talking to investors. I've really fine-tuned exactly what I want to do. I can do it. I just need the money. And I'm kind of sick of just waiting for someone to tell me yes. And so I was getting really good feedback from family, friends, from investors, from the community. And that's where I think initially I wasn't going to do equity crowdfunding. I think I wanted to keep this a little bit quieter. And then I was like, you know what? Equity crowdfunding is an awesome option for us. Like we can get some really like excited early investors. I think some of these investors might be a little bit like, yeah, but is there a market here? And I can do equity crowdfunding and show them, here's people that will invest in the company, not just customers, but here's people who will put their dollars behind it. So I really started warming up to that idea and liking kind of the community aspect of it as opposed to the traditional routes of fundraising.
And so for our listeners, are you still fundraising? Are you still looking for capital, or have you closed the round? And yeah,
we have
what's
successfully closed the round. Thank you. Sorry for the listeners who can't invest. We maxed out at 224,000 on our equity crowdfunding round.
Amazing. That's amazing.
Is there any knowledge of, do you think some of those investors were also interested parents? Like, are any of those investors some people that are like, oh no, I wish I had? I mean, was there any sort of that relationship that you think sparked any of this type of access or at least investment?
There were some. I think the the thing I'm finding and that I'm really interested by is it's not just parents that are paying attention. Like I think there's some grandparents who are like, oh, I would love to buy this for my, little grandkids. There's people who don't have kids that are like, this is the way of the future. And I really pay attention to health and wellness and what we're putting into our bodies and the microplastics. And like, we need different options. And it's so cool that you're doing this. And so and then there are also parents that are like, this is awesome and we need this for our kids. And so what I really like about this is it's a toy company, but we're engaging with a lot of other people other than just parents, because I think consumers they do want more options, they want more options that are better for the environment and they don't have to feel guilty about buying and they know that there's kind of a second life for it. So I think it's interesting that it's not just parents who are paying attention. There's really kind of a lot of other people who are interested.
We usually round out an episode with some hopeful message, and I think there's so much wrapped in of hope, of education for the next age of consumers that now are engaging maybe in these born circular models as they are born into new circular economy models.
Yeah.
How do you think this? I mean, what really is your goal here on? I mean, so many of these notes of circular economy at this level, from ages 1 to 3, hit on responsibility, empathy, engagement, collaboration. So many of this is almost fundamental to the model and then to what we teach young ones.
Yes.
How do you even message? How do you even encapsulate that into a message?
I think stories is really huge. Like I'm experimenting with coming out with some children's books alongside the characters.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Yes.
But not in like preachy ways to be like, we all need compassion to be sustainable and like we have to take care of the earth. Nothing wrong with that. I just think like more playful ways that like the parents can actually take the message and fine tune it themselves. Kind of like Dr. Seuss books or whatnot, like where it's like there's a silly fun message in there and then the parent can read it and be like, hey, and so you know how we're composting in the backyard. And so I think like there's just the stories is kind of a really fun way to engage with the children, but leaving enough room for them to have imagination and to play with their parents on where they want to take that message is really exciting. And I think kind of like you're talking about, like the reason why I'm so excited is it's not just let's kind of inspire the toddlers and see where it takes us. Like our Gen Z and our millennial generation are asking for change. And they are the ones that are parents. They are the ones that have friends that have kids and have friends that are parents. And I think like I'm really excited that like we're the ones that are going to change the economy and really kind of bring the circular economy up. So not just are we inspiring future generations, but like there's numbers behind showing that like our Millennial Gen Z generation are like, this is not good enough. Companies, we need you to do better. And so I think like it's exciting that it's not just the little ones playing with our product, but it's the ones with the purchasing power buying it for them, that I feel really optimistic and hopeful that we're going to see some changes in the way that we're buying products.
So as you're building out your team to deliver this amazing vision, what are you looking for? Who do you need on your team? Like, what's the call to action to our listeners on how they could help?
Yes. Great question, because this like is very near and dear to my heart and something that I'm currently building right now. I found number one, it's a hard challenge. And so you need people who are up for the challenge. It's not, every working at any startup is difficult. This takes an added layer of the problems that we're trying to solve. Kind of like we talked about, there's so many different complexities that we're trying to solve. And then I think like the company culture to me is so important. And so, there's the roles that we're trying to hire. Like I'm going for marketing is going to be huge because let's build that brand voice and what does that feel and look like? And how do we build that as we're building the product? Having an electrical engineer, I'm a mechanical engineer by trade, but having someone help me build the product, someone else to help me kind of with the groundwork thing so I can focus on the product development, things like that. And like the graphic design so we can really build out kind of our brand packaging and website and all that. So there's the roles, but like to me, what I found working with people already is like this company is so authentic to me and so personal. And you're playing with kids and you're trying to solve this future of sustainability in a capitalist market where you do have to compete, And so like I think I've got really I've boiled down really strong company values that I'm looking for and finding people who are mission driven, who have those values like appreciation, playfulness, like courage, curiosity, creativity, like things like that, where it's like, okay, we've got a hard challenge and we want our customers to trust us and bring transparency to the table that we're going to do the best that we can. And we're excited for the challenge. So, I think culture, like regardless of the roles that we need, the culture is like so important to me for the foundation of this company to build it and have it be successful.
I know what I'm in the age of babies right now, not of my own, but everyone else in my network is at that level. And so I know, yeah. So again, I am eager for Hara. So again, this is where it's my duty to give the gift of circularity. So please allow me to do that. Well, thank you for joining us today. I loved at where we're intersecting with this model and where you are in that journey. And I look forward to, clicking back in at some point down the line when there's more to even talk about too.
Amazing. Yeah, it's going to be an exciting year. So excited. Thank you for having me and being able to talk about this. Like as an early stage founder, it's, nerve-wracking to get out there and talk about a message so early, but to have people interested in it and connect is like just amazing. And I'm excited to keep you guys posted. It's going to be a big year for us.
It's inspirational. Thank you.
Thank you.